What if Sonic X Shadow Generations had a classic Sonic DLC campaign? What, did you really think I was finished with creating all the freaking DLCs for Sonic X Generations? No, I am freaking not. And in fact, this is probably going to be the very last one I'm actually going to be doing. If you've already seen my other discussion videos based on some of the other DLCs that I mentioned for Sonic X Shadow Generations, you probably know by now that there's a lot that I talked about. Now, a lot of people are probably saying that they're probably getting sick and tired of having the classic Sonic gameplay. Well, to be fair, I mean, this is probably just the one time I'm going to be talking about this, and I feel like this was probably the best way to just finalize everything if there's no longer going to be any more classic Sonic gameplay. So what better way to, finalize classic Sonic gameplay is to have classic Sonic have his own campaign with more classic levels for him to deal with. Maybe have two 2D acts. You get where I'm coming from. Depending on how the story would actually take place for this one is going to be a little bit interesting. You can make it work before or after the events of Sonic Generations. When classic Sonic actually got sucked up from the time for the first time, he was stuck in white space, the exact same place as the modern Sonic was. But what happens if there was actually a place for him that he also needed to save his classic friends? Take for classic Tails, for example. He was also there when this all happened. So was he also frozen just like modern Tails? What happened there? So I feel like it's probably fair to say that we can actually have the exact same story-wise, but just basically in classic format. We have classic Sonic to save his classic Tails friend, and then probably the other guys as well, like classic Amy or anybody else that is involved. Maybe you could even have classic Trip as one of those characters. I know that's a bit weird, but to be honest, I feel like that's not really a bad idea. Now, here's the thing, I had to do a lot of research depending on which classic Sonic level whether I have or have not played, because there's so many of them, and we have a few Sonic classic games now that whether they've been, from this year or way back in the past. First off, as we know, we've already gotten levels from, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles. So there's literally no point in doing that again for the second time for classic Sonic, because there's no need. However, we can actually go through levels that we have not yet explored from other classic Sonic games. So maybe perhaps starting with classic Tails, if you're going to save him, I think the level for him should actually be Poloi Forest. Now, if you don't know what Poloi Forest actually is, it's actually the very first level that was actually in the game for Tails' Adventure. And yes, Tails actually did apparently get his own game. Literally a game all about Tails. And to be honest, Poloi Forest could actually be a really good start if you're going to actually be including to save, classic Tails in this type of story format, and this makes perfect sense. And you know what, having 2D classic levels is not so bad of an idea. For me, this actually pretty much works out solid, and it actually works out really well for me. After that, you will probably go ahead and save classic Amy this time, specifically in Palm Tree Panic Zone, which is again another first level specifically from Sonic CD. This has got to work, and this works perfectly in my opinion, because this is literally where this game first introduced Amy and Metal Sonic at the exact same time. And what other better way to actually get a full Sonic CD level? Now, first off, we technically kind of got a battlefield from Sonic CD and Sonic Generations where classic Sonic actually goes up against, classic Metal Sonic. But it's not really technically a full level, it's just a boss fight. But we never actually got a fully fledged playable level to actually play in that is from Sonic CD and Sonic Generations. So I feel like this would probably make so much sense if we get Palm Tree Panic Zone as the level for Amy to represent that that's when she was first introduced in Sonic CD. Poetry at its finest. Now, in this case, I actually wanted to add a level specifically from Knuckles Chaotix. And the person that you're going to actually be saving specifically in this one will be actually Mighty the Armadillo. Mighty the Armadillo has actually been a big part of Knuckles and the Chaotix for quite some time, and he has actually made some variant level areas, especially in Sonic Mania Plus, along with a few other old Sonic games that we pretty much have not actually been able to see for like, well, ever, and we never even knew they even existed. And whilst doing my research, while I'm trying to research every single classic Sonic level or game that I've ever encountered or have encountered before, in this one, since I chose the Knuckles Chaotix character, then I feel like the best one could actually be Amazing Arena, which is technically like a dark stage that turns colorful when the player finds the light switch. I feel like this will be 100% so much fun, and I feel like this will be so awesome to play. I've seen a few bits and pieces while doing into my research, and it just looks so vastly colorful, and it's so bright once you turn on that switch. It feels like a fever dream. Literally in classic style. It is absolutely incredible. I definitely feel like it's safe to say that we should definitely add in Amazing Arena and make that the level that, you know, Mighty the Armadillo is stuck in. You gotta save him in that area, which will be awesome. Now, for the first rival for this one, you're probably also thinking to yourself, wait, where is Knuckles? Is he not gonna be part of this? Well, he is. But that's what I mean. I'm making Knuckles, the classic Knuckles, as a rival. A lot of people stated that Knuckles was like a missed opportunity for Sonic to not be a rival in the original Sonic generations. Well, now you can, by probably using the exact same boss fight that they first met in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, which probably actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. And of course, for the big boss, I think it makes sense to actually use, well, the egg hands, like the egg arms or the egg hands. If you remember this type of specific boss, this was technically like the final boss of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 without the Knuckles in it. No, I'm not kidding when I say this, but also it was even a boss fight specifically meant for Sonic Generations for the 3DS. So I feel like they probably have the opportunity to actually implement that boss in there as well for this campaign. To me, this makes a lot of sense because at least you're kind of very familiar with the boss and it really shouldn't be that hard to really fight up against. So it's easy breezy from there. Now moving along with this next specific character that I'm in the next specific world, there's going to be another few areas. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to be adding like probably about like 3 more, I think, because there really isn't that many other classic Sonic games to actually put in there, depending on which ones they are. So anyways, the next level I was actually specifically thinking is one from Sonic Triple Trouble. This one's a very old Sonic game, and it's very hard to be able to come by. So in this case, I decided to actually get Sunset Parkstone, and the character you actually gotta save is actually Ray the Flying Squirrel. I mean, think about it. You can't have freaking Mighty without Ray, right? And this one's a little interesting because this level actually involves with a little bit of riding on carriages and like minecarts and then swinging into line poles. It's pretty interesting the way how they did this, and you know what? I actually really don't mind this kind of design. I think the color, if it were to be, you know, remastered for like a 3D but 2D classic level, then maybe probably make the sunset view a little bit brighter, I think. That way it can just match the theme color of, you know, of Ray's fur. Well, it will be close anyways. But yeah, I feel like doing Sunset Park Zone would actually be a very interesting choice, especially in my opinion. Okay, so now up to the 4th level. This one was going to be very interesting the way how I was going to pick the certain character to actually save in that zone. And I was actually kind of going for Studiopolis from Sonic Mania, or Sonic Mania Plus, if you will. Studiopolis had to be one of the most extravagant yet extraordinary levels to actually play in Sonic Mania. If not, this was actually the 3rd level in Sonic Mania ever, and it was just so good the way how the game just be able to create such an awesome level design and literally just some fun assets to just put together. I feel like this was just an A+ ever since when I saw it, and I feel like everyone loves Studiopolis. Let's be freaking real, like Studiopolis is pretty much one of the best things I've ever seen. And ridiculously enough, but I feel like the best character to actually save in this particular game was Honey the Cat. Now, before you say anything, I know that Honey the Cat isn't really anywhere in most Sonic games, maybe usually mostly in Sonic comics. However, there is only one game specifically that only had Honey the Cat as a playable character, and that specifically is Sonic Rumble. Yep, that's pretty much the only reason why I'm letting Honey the Cat in this one. And obviously, maybe not in the classic version, but obviously make her like a remastered, classic 3D version of Honey the Cat. Just to be clear, we can't make it like a freaking modern version already, because otherwise that's too soon. But let's be frank, I really do feel like that Honey the Cat should at least have some sort of love, and to actually at least be somewhat in this particular DLC that I'm coming up with right now. And it just makes sense. I mean, you don't really have much, there really isn't much of Honey the Cat to go by, but like, we need a good voice actor for her as well. And other than that, I mean, that's pretty much all that I can really say. I mean, there's really not much, but there is some special places in some other people's hearts that do love this character, keep in mind. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be happy to see at least a classical remake version of Honey the Cat coming back to Sonic in a game. Now, for the 6th level that I'm going to be adding finally, and this is probably going to be the very final level, if I'm being completely honest. And yes, the bosses were going to be very hard to be able to come by, because it was really going to get really hard to figure out who exactly I was going to freaking put in as bosses, which I will get to in a minute. So for the final level, the 6th level for this classic DLC that I think should probably work is the level specifically from Sonic Superstars. Speed Jungle Zone. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's the second zone of the entire game of Sonic Superstars. But can we freaking appreciate how freaking groovy and freaking upbeat this music is? How can you say no to that? And obviously, it would make a lot of sense if Trip the Sungazer were to be an additional character to save in this campaign. I feel like this makes a lot of sense because, you know, obviously Trip was a specific character in Sonic's classical past that, you know, that should be acknowledged a lot more specifically, even just for a short amount of time. So Speed Jungle Zone really needs to make a comeback. And besides, Speed Jungle Zone alone was like very enjoyable. If they can make like some sort of other versions of Speed Jungle Zone rather than just having to like do a cut and paste of the original level from the original game, I will be happy. Now for the bosses, now thinking about this to myself, this really took some time for me to figure out like who exactly else can I put as the boss. We've already got Knuckles, we've already got the Egg Hammer or Egg Arms, whatever. I think it's safe to say that we can at least put the next few characters in here, at least. So my next choice as a rival character would have to be, literally would have to be Fang the Joe-Boa. Yep, I feel like it's very appropriate to actually bring back Fang. He finally made it into a freaking classic Sonic game in Superstars. I just think it will make more sense if he actually makes a comeback into this game as well for a DLC on Sonic X Shadow Generations, if that were possible. To me, this makes a lot of sense, and I really do feel like this will work perfectly well. Now, this was the hardest part yet, because the big boss finally, this really got my head spinning, and there's a few that I had in mind, but Can we just be all real for 1 second and let's just be real here? That I think it's safe to say having Mecca Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles is probably the best way to go. I mean, we've already got freaking Mecca Sonic finally from Sonic the Hedgehog 2 back in Sonic Superstars as a custom boss battle. It is safe to say that we should definitely get Mecca Sonic from Sonic 3 and Knuckles back as a big boss this time. Regardless, even if he has the exact same moveset as the other one from Sonic 2, don't forget, he does have the ability to go super with the Master Emerald. So if they have some way of acknowledging that again, but this time having Sonic actually having to go against Super Mecha Sonic this time, I feel like that will make a lot of sense. And I feel like that would be so freaking good if they did that. Now, other options that I was thinking of, maybe they could actually put some in as well. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not that quite sure. But if they were actually going to do an additional, like, you know, 3 more levels to get a total of 9 acts as well, just like how the original campaign was doing it. I mean, yes, I would totally agree with that. But I don't know if they would also do this as well to add, like, you know, just 2 more, 1 final rival boss and 1 extra big boss just for the sake of it. Before then, of course, you got the time meter regardless in, you know, for both classic Sonic and modern Sonic. The other 2 bosses I was specifically thinking of was Heavy Overlord, specifically in his Giga form, which is the final boss of Sonic Mania or Sonic Mania Plus, which it's been a while since we've seen any kind of Phantom Ruby action, especially from either Sonic Forces or Sonic Mania, and to me it kind of makes sense if we can actually just bring back Giga Heavy Overlord, come back into that form in 3D state. I feel like that would be pretty cool to actually see, and I would love to know what else does the Phantom Ruby really have to offer, if I'm being completely honest. And then, of course, another big boss to just mention as well was the giant dark dragon, which is the final boss from Sonic Superstars as well. I do feel like that would be interesting, considering the fact that he was a bit of a tough one to actually deal with, and having to actually deal with him in base Sonic form would be a really more interesting challenge as well. So having to do that, just like how Sonic went against Perfect Chaos in the original campaign, instead of going super like in Sonic Adventure, that would be interesting to see, and I wonder if that's actually going to be possible to do if bringing that bad boy back into a DLC as just an extra few bosses down the track. What do you guys think? Can you let me know down in the comments below? Anyways, regardless, and then after when that's all finished, everyone gets back to their timeline, while Classic Sonic and Classic Tails obviously join the modern team to confront the boss, which was, you know, Dr. Eggman and Classic Eggman. So anyway, I feel like that pretty much wraps it up for this final discussion for like any content DLC for Sonic X Shadow Generations. I feel like that should be it. I feel like this is a fair good amount of Sonic content that maybe Sega could actually add in at some point if they decide to continue on adding more content for Sonic X Shadow Generations. It's a fun game, and it's even more fun now since it has more content regardless. If you have not checked all the other content discussions that I talked about, go ahead and watch those now if you haven't already. It's literally for free. And let me know in the comments below, do you think that there should actually be like a Classic Sonic campaign where just Classic Sonic has his own little adventure here and there whilst doing, you know, the rest of the adventure with modern Sonic and modern Tails and company? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. That is the end to all those discussions. If you do feel like that there should be more content for Sonic X Shadow Generations, please let me know in the comments below. Those are probably going to be used for future references down the track if I ever decide to come up with any. And if you guys decide to come up with any in the comments, I will be sure to check those out if there's any chances of that happening. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notification bell to never miss a video. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, my name is Mad Dog, and may your days be mad and rad!